Hey guys, Ali Duzet here, and this Aquarius full moon that is happening today is a big deal. Share with your friends. We have a lot going on, and my goal is for you to use this information to change your own life and to have a greater understanding of what is going on in the whole world altogether. This is a huge full moon today. On my chart here, this is the sun, this is the moon way down here, looks like a little moon. This is an extra big deal if you have a lot of Leo in your chart or a lot of Aquarius in your chart. But this is also a big deal globally. This is a thing that's going to impact us all individually and also the world as a whole, and also nations as a whole. And, as an American, I am going to take a look at that from a more American perspective, but America is the global superpower, and this is going to be really impactful for the entire planet. This is our final full moon before the next eclipse portal, which always opens up every human being's energy field for massive divine downloads. In the 2 weeks between eclipses, everybody's energy field opens up, and we have a huge opportunity for receiving divine information and revelation about our lives. Everybody is experiencing this. Some people use it for good, and some people don't. I mean, it opens up our connection with the spiritual realm. And if you know, there's good spirits and bad spirits, and everybody is just more open to spirits in general. And we'll talk about that more as that approaches. So if you care about that, like and subscribe, because we're going to talk about it more in the next couple of weeks as we build up to this eclipse. But we have a lot to talk about, so let's just jump in. Okay, this full moon is taking place with the sun in Leo up here and the moon in Aquarius. And what this indicates is that we're all invited to look at these themes of Leo and Aquarius in our own lives right now and see what is not working. Leo deals with themes of being appreciated or unappreciated. Leo is the archetypal celebrity, and it needs to feel important. It needs to feel acknowledged for the good that it has done for the world. And when it is not acknowledged, it feels devastated. Aquarius is the quintessential humanitarian. Aquarius is out there self-sacrificing for the greater good, but it also kind of needs a little bit of appreciation for that. So this is an axis where we're going to be having things organically come up that invite us to notice where we are being acknowledged or where we are not being acknowledged. Where are we being appreciated and where are we not being appreciated? And Aquarius is also the quintessential authentic person, I guess you could say. They're the person that is living true to themselves no matter what anybody else says. And so where Leo can kind of really worry about what other people think, Aquarius is much less concerned about that. Aquarius just wants to live true to itself. So we are also going to have a lot of questions show up at this time about, are you living in your integrity? Are you doing the things that you feel like you want to do because you truly want to do them? Or are you making yourself do things that you don't want to do because other people expect it of you, or because it just has to happen, it has to get done? All of these kinds of things are going to show up today and in the following days, and you may have already felt these themes over the past 3 days. Full moon energy goes in 3 days in either direction. So we've just had 3 days of that. We're heading into 3 more days of it. And about a week from now, we'll have the first quarter moon. I'm sorry, we'll have the third quarter moon, and you will feel different, but right now, these are big themes coming up. The sun is actually conjunct Mercury retrograde right now. Do you see this little Mercury right here with the RX down there? So he is retrograde. And this invites us to look very carefully at the past and what we need to change in order to heal our future. So we have big vibes right now to support us in retrospection. If I'm feeling unappreciated, maybe taken advantage of, if I'm feeling like I'm not living true to myself and I'm not living in my integrity and my authenticity, what have I done to bring myself to this point? How did I participate in the creation of these circumstances? That is the big question. So these are a few questions to ask yourself. And if you're doing my journaling challenge that's happening right now, I recommend watching this whole video and then coming back here and journaling on these questions if you need a prompt for today. The big questions to ask: where do I feel unappreciated or unnoticed in my life? how do I benefit from creating this experience in my life? What do you get out of it when other people ignore you? Is there any part of you that's kind of relishing the victim experience, right? We got to dig into this so we can start to shift it. Where do I feel judged because of my authenticity? Or where would I feel judged if I lived in my authenticity? Where am I holding myself back from living in my authenticity? Okay, these questions are going to be extra impactful today and in the next 3 days. So I really recommend journaling on them. Now, side note, these are good questions every day, right? You will never have a day go by where these questions are not worth, digging into. So even if you watch this years in the future, I don't care. These are good questions and you should journal about them. Now, at the same time, we have this Sun, Moon, Uranus square. It's this red triangle right here. And I know it says a square. It's because if this axis is the main line, this planet is coming out. And can you see that that would make a T from this shape? So Uranus over here is this guy with these big ears. And he is always listening for the unexpected, those secret whispers of genius that float in on the wind. That's those ears. Um, Uranus deals with unexpected events, and so does Aquarius, actually. Uranus actually rules Aquarius. And so, with this exciting T square, the big message is to expect the unexpected. We may be seeing some surprise events today. No one saw them coming. We may see this on a personal level, we may see this on a global level, and it may happen at that moment, or more likely, we will see these unexpected events happening in the next days, and we will see the effects of them happening way down the road. Remember that a lot of times, especially with things of global significance, a big thing can happen behind closed doors that has absolutely global significance. And as normal people living our normal lives, we will have no knowledge of these secret decisions that were made. We will have no knowledge of this information that was conveyed in secret. We won't even know about it. And months down the road, we will see the effects of the decisions made. So I do feel like today some big stuff is probably going to happen. Will it be obvious or not obvious? It's hard to say, and we'll just have to see how it unfolds. One notable thing about this Uranus in Taurus is that the last time it was here was when the US joined World War II, and Uranus was also in Taurus during the Great Depression. Uranus is on an 84-year cycle, and so the last time Uranus was in Taurus was 84 years ago, and Taurus deals with money and finances and the economy. Uranus just shakes everything up. So to have Uranus in Taurus, we can expect big shakeups in the economy. And I think we have definitely seen that over the past few years that Uranus has been in this sign. So as we go about today and the next coming days, if there are some big financial shakeups, it may have to do with this exact square, because note that the moon is at 27 degrees and 15 minutes. The sun, 27 degrees and 15 minutes. And look at that, Uranus at 27 degrees and 11 minutes. That is like so tight. And also Uranus is conjunct the star Algol, which is the head of Medusa in the constellation of Perseus. And so when I mean it's called the demon star, and it deals with things like decapitation and the loss of a head, whether that head is symbolic or literal, and I talked with my friend Naomi Fox Reyna about all of this stuff, and we made another video that came out a few days ago. But I wanted to recap a lot of this stuff for today. So we talked about that in that video. So go check that out if you want to hear more about that. But Uranus and Algol came into this conjunction right as Donald Trump had his literal head attacked. So this is like a very interesting energy to be triggering so tightly today. Where in your life is there a leadership energy that needs to shift? I'm talking about maybe things like addiction, or where are you putting the majority of your energy? What are you leading with in your life that may need to be decapitated, and maybe you need a shift in direction? That may be how this energy shows up for you. Some new awareness of the way I'm living my life is not working. I need to make some little course corrections now. And the stuff that shows up in your life organically today and in the next 3 days, and the stuff that showed up 3 days in the past, these things are all showing up for you specifically to help you realize, okay, if my life is not 100% perfect, there are some changes I could personally make to change the outcome for myself. Okay, so that is the big invitation. There's also a mutable T-square going off today. Right here, it's this red line between Venus in Virgo and Saturn in Pisces, and then it makes the square over to Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. So Venus and Jupiter both deal with money. Venus deals with relationships, especially like romantic relationships and relationships with women. So this would be like your relationship with your mom. Mars deals with your relationships with men, your relationship with your dad or your spouse. Saturn deals with karma and the law of the harvest. Okay, and Mars also deals with fiery explosion energy. And, when Mars is transiting Aries, a lot of times we see like forest fires and stuff like that. Mars energy can be, um, it can get offended and can be pretty explosive about that. So as we're dealing with this mutable T-square right here, we have this big question of how have my choices created the dynamics that I'm experiencing in my romantic relationships, in my money experiences, and in any conflicts that I'm having with other people. Okay. So this is a great time to get really honest with ourselves about the nature of our own choices and how have my own choices led me here? How is this the harvest that I have created? And I know that a lot of times it can feel like, well, I didn't create this. It wasn't my fault. I'm the victim of my circumstances. And yet there is usually some kind of mindset shift that if we realize it can really change our circumstances quite a bit. We have a lot of support today to dig into that. And as we go through the day, if we are experiencing conflict, especially what feels like explosive or sudden conflict, and stuff that feels very magnified, perhaps like weirdly magnified, where like normally this is not a big deal, and like today it's a really big deal and you just want to explode about it. We have support to really look within, get real with ourselves. Why, how have I contributed to this? And I feel very strongly about the power of boundaries and, taking personal responsibility for how we're showing up in our lives and how that impacts the way that life shows up for us. So I just invite us all to keep that in mind. If you have a lot of Virgo, Sagittarius, Gemini, or Pisces energy in your own chart, you may feel this T-square a lot. I feel like I super feel this. I'm a Virgo sun and Pisces moon, and basically most of my planets are in these 4 houses, and I feel it a lot. We are all being invited to examine our responsibility, our duties. Saturn deals with responsibilities and duties. And we're being invited to reevaluate how are we showing up with our duties in terms of our relationships and our finances. Okay. And these expansive conflicts, those Mars style events, may show up in your life just to bring your awareness to where do you need to act differently in your relationships and with your money. What have you done right? Go celebrate it. What have you done wrong? Take another look and see what you might be able to do differently. Some journaling questions about this. Have I been responsible in how I have created, spent, and tracked my money? And if not, why not? Have I been responsible in my relationships? How do my money and my relationships reflect my past choices, for good or for ill? What choices do I need to quote unquote repent of and shift now so I can create a better future for myself? And when I use that word, I really just mean like we look at that choice and we decide, okay, I am done perpetuating this choice. Like I am going to choose a new way of coexisting with this choice, and I'm going to choose differently in the future. One thing to remember is that this T-square is, this side is the main axis of it with Venus in Virgo and Saturn in Pisces, and the Virgo Pisces axis deals with delusion. On the Pisces side, it deals with the delusion of when we think we're trusting our intuition and really we're just being crazy people. And then on Virgo is obsessed with logic, and the delusionality of Virgo is that Virgo can logic itself into thinking that it's being really logical when really it's also being crazy. It's just justified it a lot. um, so on both sides, we're being asked right now to say, we're being asked, where have you been totally delusional in your relationships? Where have you been totally delusional with your finances? And we have a lot of support right now to dig into this and see the truth, if the truth is what we want to see. And if that is not what we want to see, with Mercury in retrograde and Saturn in retrograde, I think we also have a lot of support to further delude ourselves. So I think everybody that comes to me is on a quest for truth. So I invite all of us to just be conscious of this and to really be open to hearing the hard answers that God has for us and that our bodies have for us as we journal and dig into this, because we may find information that we don't want to hear. Somebody in my Facebook group just posted that um, in the past couple of days with this full moon energy, and she's been doing my journaling challenge, which I'll link below. And she just said that a lot of stuff has come up for her that she wasn't prepared for. She was a little bit shocked, I guess, at what came up. And I have to say for myself, that's been true as well. As I've been working through everything that's come up with this full moon, I've been like, oh my gosh, that was in me, that was going on in my life. And I like didn't realize what was going on behind the scenes in myself. If that is you also, you're on the right track. It's okay. Um, but the most important thing is being open to an ugly truth about yourself. When we face our ugly truths, that's when we see the really big changes that heal our entire lives. As long as we're too scared to face the dark side of ourselves and get real with it, the more we put that off, the more we struggle and we suffer. And it's not just us struggling and suffering. When we are unwilling to face our shadow side and be real with it and get real with the ugliness and start to love it and change it, um, it impacts everybody around us, because when we are at war with our own selves, that war bleeds out on everyone that we interact with. So let's get real with ourselves and ask ourselves, where have we been delusional? Where do we need to change? Now, this is a globally important chart as well, as Naomi Fox Reyna pointed out, and I already linked her stuff below, but you can also get your free star chart at her website, so that link will be below as well, in case you want to look at your own chart in the context of all this stuff. Find out how much Sagittarius you have going on personally, how much Leo and Aquarius, right? But this is the important thing, that America's natal moon, America's birthday is on the outer wheel of this chart, okay? And America's natal moon is at 27 degrees of Aquarius, exact, the moon off only by 5 minutes. What does this mean? We are having a massive reset for America's moon, which is like the people of America. This is the way that the nation kind of like thinks and interacts with itself, internally, a big internal reset. And the interesting thing about the moon is that it is under the surface. It's much more hidden than the sun. Um, in mundane astrology, the sun represents the leader of a nation and the moon represents the people. And so when I'm looking at this chart, I'm thinking, okay, it looks like the populace is going to have a big reset, and the leadership may or may not get it. With this Mercury in retrograde almost exact the sun, my guess is that the leadership will not get it. They will not comprehend the shifts that will be taking place in the psyche of the populace. And there may be some unexpected events, again, with this Uranus making this T-square here, that drive this shift or illuminate it as it comes to the surface. So this is just a very powerful energy for our nation. And thank you, Naomi, for bringing this to my attention. One thing that I pointed out in our previous video is that, you have a full moon in Aquarius every single year. It's not that big of a deal to have a full moon in Aquarius. You've already lived through a bunch of them if you're watching this channel. And and that's great. Congratulations. But the full moon takes place at a different degree every year. You've lived through a bunch of Aquarius full moons, but have you lived through a bunch where the moon was exact America's natal moon? The answer is no, you have not. This exact full moon is at an exact location of the chart that is unusual and deeply significant. And it aligns with that 27-degree Uranus in a way that is also significant. That has certainly never happened before in our lifetimes. And I don't know, I'm really interested to see what kind of unexpected events show up to invite the populace of the nation and the leaders of the nation to step into greater authenticity. Oh man, I have a lot to say about that, but let's keep going. Oh wait, and of course the Democratic National Convention starts today, so we'll have to keep an eye on how that shows up. What are some things that we can expect? Remember that America's natal nodal axis, this is like the life purpose of America as a nation, is to go away from Aquarian themes and towards Leo themes. We are heading to this Leo zone. And what does this mean? It means we're called to heal our baggage around, both of these energies, but especially that Aquarian energy, the baggage that we carry, especially from past generations. We have a calling to heal that so we can step forward into that Leo limelight. So one thing about Aquarius energy is that it is very prone to stepping into humanitarian impulses without having necessarily thought them through all the way. And I think that we can see that in how America has often thrown a bazillion jillion dollars at humanitarian aids of all kinds, both domestic and foreign, where the money was not spent wisely, where it actually often made things worse instead of better. This is when America does this, that is a huge expression of the unhealthy Aquarian South node. And with the moon, I mean, like, this is not a tight conjunction, but it is in the same sign. And this does, I mean, they affect each other, and Pluto right now is at 0 degrees of Aquarius. When I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, we may be seeing some interesting vibes with how is America spending its own money on other people that are not Americans, and how is that going to impact the world at large, and how is it going to impact the stability of the nation itself, remembering that America's stability affects the stability of the entire planet because, again, it's the global superpower right now, and we live in a unipolar world currently. In the context of this full moon, America's natal Jupiter, Sun, Mercury, part of Fortune, and North Node are all in the 8th house. And so I want to clarify that, like, of course, the houses are shifting all the time, but for this exact moment, this snapshot of the night sky, in the context of this moment today, the full moon, all of this stuff for America is happening in the 8th house. And this just really stood out to me because the 8th house is the house of transformation, death and rebirth, death and resurrection. And the motto of this house is dissolve and evolve. It's the caterpillar that wraps itself into a cocoon and literally turns into goo and then reforms into a whole new creature, that beautiful butterfly. This is the house of the cocoon and the dissolving part. Where am I turning into goo and mush? Because what I was doing, the timeline is over for that. And now it's time for a new way to show up in the world. And here we have all of this stuff going on. This is energy that's affecting, our money and our divine blessings as a nation, our abilities to communicate internally and externally, like with the populace and with the outer world. Again, dealing with our money and our treasures and our overall destiny. When I see this, I'm like, oh boy, this is an interesting placement. And I really wonder what kinds of fascinating shifts will be taking place as a result of this one moment. I really view these astronomical movements as kind of like the motions, the hands on a clock. And when the clock strikes noon, um, noon has begun, and maybe you're not going to eat your lunch right at noon. Maybe you're going to eat it at 12:45, but like it strikes noon and you know that it is noon and it's daytime and it's lunchtime and there are different things that you're going to do because of where the clock is right now and what's going on in the clock. And this is an interesting chime of the clock. These are interesting placements for what this clock is telling us is on the horizon for us. Note that America's natal black moon Lilith right here is at 27 degrees of Leo, and so is the sun on this event. The black moon, I have read that it indicates where your enemies are. And so I find this to be a very, very, very interesting placement, that the light would be shining on America's enemies, but because the black moon in America's natal chart is retrograde and we have Mercury retrograde here at 26 degrees right next to the sun, creating this like really interesting little stellium in this little zone. It's possible that America will not realize who her enemies are until it's too late. A lot of limelight on a hidden enemy. So like, I don't know what to make of that, but you may have your own predictions. One other thing that I thought was interesting is that the part of fortune at this exact moment is at 2 degrees and 26 minutes of Gemini, and this is the descendant of the chart, 2 degrees and 25 minutes of Gemini. And when I saw that, I just thought, I just thought of God's blessings, with the part of fortune, and that if America has to descend into a sort of underworld, I mean, the eighth house is the house of the underworld, and going through, the journey of the underworld, almost like an Odysseus kind of situation, if we have to walk through the valley of the shadow of death in the future, possibly because of some stuff that might happen today, or like the groundwork has been being laid. And of course, the groundwork has been being laid for a long time. We had some big conjunctions in 2020. We had America's Pluto return, which I've done a lot of work on this channel. We had that in 2022. And now we have this big full moon. And of course, we had that eclipse in April. We have an eclipse coming up next month. And, it's all in God's hands. And even if America has to walk through the valley of the shadow of death to come out on the other side transformed, there is a blessing that even if things feel like they might be falling apart for some people, there's a blessing on the descent. That is kind of the message that I personally took from this. To me, this chart is like a final wake-up call for everybody, for all the humans and all of the nations, to see what is not working about the balance between putting themselves first and putting humanitarian causes first, that Leo and Aquarius axis. And, on a personal level, it's like, how am I putting myself first? How am I putting my important causes first? How is that balance going for me? Am I living true to myself? Am I being appreciated for what I'm providing for the world? And these are questions that every nation will get to ask itself as well, whether they realize it or not. So these are just questions that will be on everybody's mind. And remember that we have the big eclipse energies, starting with a lunar eclipse, a partial lunar eclipse on September 17th and September 18th, depending on your time zone. And we'll talk more about that later, but after this full moon, we'll have like 2 weeks to kind of like unwind a little bit, and then we're going to head into eclipse prep. So I am preparing that currently. But how do you use this energy for your own self? Full moons are the farthest apart a moon and a sun can possibly get. And during the full moon, we have extra support to let things go. So I love using the full moon day to make a list of things I want to let go of. I don't make a plan on how I'm going to let go of them. I don't, I don't know, make myself a to-do list or something. I just say, you know what? I'm sick of having my victim mentality about whatever. I'm sick of having my poverty mindset. You just write it down and just say, I'm letting go of that today. And then you can just burn it or throw it away or just do nothing with it, leave it in your spiral notebook and find it again 6 years from now when you're cleaning out your garage and you open it up and find the list. But just writing down the list of what you want to let go of, I think, can be very powerful. And to actually prompt your brain to say, oh, actually, I think it is time to let it go. Rest if you can. If you are feeling extra stressed today, just see if you can rest. Even if it's a 1-minute rest, like set a timer for 60 seconds and sit down and put your feet up or take your deep breaths, whatever you can do to support yourself in a way that you will feel like you are supporting yourself, that will be a good choice. Not everybody will have an upheaval day. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's chart is different. The stuff that's in your personal chart is going to be interacting with the astronomical weather today. And with your own choices, the very most important part to create your experience. There is no such thing as a bad chart or a bad transit, but there is such a thing as a bad attitude. That's my opinion. And I say that as someone who has had a really bad attitude for the past couple of days. This energy, I feel like, has kicked my trash, but I want to fully own that to the extent it has kicked my trash, I have been complicit in creating that trash to be kicked and like leaving it in the way of the universe for a really good kicking, None of these transits are happening to us. They are all happening for us. And the stars literally align every single day, to give us every opportunity that we need to let go of the stuff that is holding us back from our total potential and to help us step into who we actually are and how we can make our own lives the kind of lives that we want to live, how we can make the world a better place for not just ourselves, but other people. Everything is lining up every single day to make life as amazing as we're willing to let it get. So I don't know, if you have a hard day, I encourage you to feel your sad feelings and remind yourself that you're going to feel different a few days from now. Things change real fast during the full moon, and I just had an experience today where I had a good friend talking to me about her woes. And then, an hour later, she said, actually, I just had a miracle. Things have totally turned around. I can't believe it. But believe it, that's how it goes. When these big things show up right now, feel your feelings and let them pass through you so that you can get to the miracle on the other side. You can decide on new outcomes for yourself. And it starts with how you choose to use your brain and how you're going to look at your own situation and how you're going to connect with our creator for more revelation on what to do next. Come and hang out on Facebook. Intuitive Healing with Ali Duzette is my Facebook group. I graded a 10 out of 10, absolutely an A+, and you will love everybody in there. We have the most compassionate and interesting and exciting and fun group in the whole world. That is my official diagnosis. And don't forget your Taking Out the Trash challenge. It is day 25. I'll put the link to that below. I'm doing a live session to wrap up that challenge on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And we always have a fabulous time together. So if you can make it live, I hope that you do. Um, anyway, use today's full moon for good. You are great. Share with a friend, especially if they are a Leo or an Aquarius or a Virgo or a Sagittarius or Gemini or Pisces. We've got a lot that we can heal today. Have a great day.